What is up, guys? It is your friendly neighborhood dingo, and today I've got a bit of data here from Europe that should worry everybody watching. Now, we always say demographics is destiny, and I don't think this data could tell the story any better. And you know what? It's not even a story, it's a bit of a nightmare if you think about it that way. And I often say when it comes to Islamic voting bloc, something that makes it rather different to essentially any other voting bloc in most Western countries is that it's unusually younger. So let's quickly have a look at these numbers here, and you can already see why this is concerning. So this data actually tracks the percentage of Muslim school-aged children in European capitals from the year 2000 until 2025. Now, as you can see, these numbers were relatively low, and I always say, look, these numbers are generally going to be high in cities because that's generally where immigrants go to. Once again, whether illegal or legal. And in most cases, I feel like looking at these capital cities, they were probably almost entirely refugees and illegal immigrants, probably crossed over on a dinghy or something. As you can see in Brussels, 52% of school-aged children, that was last year, were Muslim. In Amsterdam, 43%. Vienna, 41%. Vienna, if you think about it, they held off Islamic invasions twice. And look at them now. Maybe imagine if you went back and told them, hey, in the future, you're not going to get conquered through war or military conquest. You're just going to get conquered because you invited your enemies in. You invited your civilizational enemy in, and you didn't do anything about it. In fact, you rolled out the red carpet and said, welcome. Just do whatever the fuck you want. That is literally what's happened here. And look at London. I mean, that's not really surprising there. Almost 40%. Stockholm, also almost 40%. Paris actually does surprise me at 29% there, but then again, you've got some other capitals there. Rome at 9%. Now, the problem here is I always say, hey, look, these immigrants and Muslims, they generally just gather in capital cities. You might have seen what happened in Birmingham, for example, the second largest city in Europe, I think, and they're just completely gone at the moment. They've been completely taken over. The people who live in these cities, if they lean right, they generally tend to leave. They go to outer urban areas or rural areas and they stay there. Now, whatever voting chart you look up, whether it be in Australia, the US, or Europe, you always see this. Because the left are so concentrated, obviously younger people who are progressive, they are concentrated in cities. And if they are, then they make it easier for people coming in from Syria or Afghanistan to stay in those city centers and to provide them with whatever free services that they do. This is why these capital cities are being taken over. Now, you might obviously think in a functioning democracy, you know what, everybody has equal representation. But often this is not the case. As more people move to these capital cities and populations empty out from everywhere else, obviously the electorate changes. Obviously, if all the job opportunities and everything's centralized around a capital city, then I feel like all the other areas slowly start losing when it comes to the electoral process, because there are just simply way more people in these capital cities and they are increasingly obviously leaning left, and that is why this demographic change is taking place. I think one of the best things you could do if you want to fight back against this is try to win over these cities. I mean, this is a problem I know that almost certainly happens here in Australia as well. And like I said, wherever you look, really, it is the case. You don't win the capital cities, you lose the country. That's simply how it is. But it is also not that easy. If you look at this chart, for example, you see that the future generation of voters, who are these people going to vote for? They're going to vote for the people who benefit them the most. And right now, they might be allied with those left-wing parties, but in the future, they're going to obviously have their own parties, their own Islamist parties, and that's been really successful in places like the UK. So obviously the counter argument to all of this would be, hey, Islam is here to coexist. You know, these people pose no danger. Obviously, you would only say this if you have zero understanding of history, zero understanding of Islamic theology, zero understanding of what people around you from these communities actually think like and what they say rather openly. This video I thought was excellent because it's a compilation of these people saying what they really think out loud. And I want you to see this. I mean, especially if you're sort of on the fence, or if you're skeptical about, oh, surely these people don't think that way. I want you to watch this and see exactly what they say.
Islam is a warrior religion in many ways, and it's unapologetically so. It's about expansion, it's about conquest and so on.
صلى الله عليه وسلم بفتح رومية فتح روما وفتح أوروبا
ونبشرهم بأننا على موعد أن نفتح روما كما فتحت القسطنطينية وكما ستفتح ثانية. إننا على موعد أن نحكم العالم كما قال الحبيب المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم.
إيطاليا والله هنفتح إيطاليا وهنخش أوروبا والإسلام يخش المنطقة دي كلها.
Warum gibt's Europa? Warum gibt's nicht muslimische Europa? Muslimen.
ستفتح أوروبا كما أخبر صلى الله عليه وسلم. شاء من شاء وأبى.
Bize göre İzmir'in sınırları Viyana'dan başlar, Adriyatik kıyılarından başlar.
مثلا أو فتح أمريكا اللاتينية كاملة أو فتح أمريكا الشمالية.
But you can force the person to live by Sharia. The purpose of jihad, for example, it is to establish the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
أملنا أبعد أن نقيم أو نرفع علم الخلافة على دولة الفاتيكان وهي روما الآن تحقيقا لحديث النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم.
I do believe as Muslims, the East and the West will one day be governed by the Sharia. The flag of Islam will fly over the White House.
In that long-range process of making America Muslim, all of America Muslim.
People all over the world are working to establish the Sharia. It's a matter of time. So these people, they are nothing more than kuffar.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they think. And you know what? That you might have noticed a lot of them were talking about Rome, and that's actually from the scripture itself. Rome was specifically mentioned as a place that would be conquered by Muslim armies, according to Muhammad, which is why they are referencing it so much. But you can see how the Muslim Brotherhood has also now infiltrated Spain, and the Islamist parties that they're part of are talking about making Spain back into Al-Andalus. I often say Gaddafi and Houari Boumediene, 20, 30, 40 years ago, they were already openly saying that Europe is going to be conquered by the wombs of their women and through mass migration from the global south into Europe. And now we're seeing it all play out. I mean, I don't think Boumediene or Gaddafi both could have even imagined how successful. Perhaps there was hyperbole on their part, but now it's becoming reality. And there's the key, in my opinion. The key has always been enforcement of borders. The key has always been sovereignty. And the key has always been the ability to be able to say no. Obviously, a few countries have. Poland said no. Hungary has said no. Japan says no. And all it really takes is a courageous enough political class to go ahead and be like, hey, you know what? We like our country. We like our people, and nothing supersedes the right of our people to feel safe, for their culture to be preserved, for their nations to be preserved, because they do mean something. And I think that is why there's such an effort, even in places like the US and Australia and even Britain, to lean on past colonial guilt, or to even go ahead and say, you know what, these countries, they're built on stolen land, so they don't really exist just because they were conquered or they were settled in. And if that land doesn't belong to the people currently living there or born there, then yeah, anyone can come in and settle there and change the country to what their beliefs are. You've seen what the Australian immigration minister said just the other day that I showed you on my channel. He said, and funny enough, I feel like this is because they've failed on every front in assimilating new immigrants. And he just goes, yeah, you know what? I don't think assimilation should be a thing anymore. They just gave up. These left-wing parties and these left-wing politicians, they genuinely have given up because they are bringing forth their weird socialist, I don't even know what it is anymore. Some weird utopia where there are no borders, where everyone's free to practice whatever religion they want to, even if those religions do not have the interests of everybody else around them in their hearts. Of course, Islam and Muslims who do believe what I just showed you, they don't think like this. They truly believe in domination, and that's exactly what they're going to do. And you know what? These people don't even have any respect for the places they move to. Look at this guy.
Radicaal. Alleen omdat hij geen varken wilt eten? Wow. We don't eat pork. We don't eat pork.
Yeah, because they don't eat pork. They're literally taking a piss on all of it. I mean, I don't know how better to describe a piss steak, because their religion bans it. You're no longer allowed to eat pork. Otherwise, these people just go and piss on it in supermarkets. That's the sort of people these are. And if that's not bad enough, just remember, all of this generally is being funded by, well, you. You go to work in the morning, you do your 9 to 5, you work hard to provide your family, and in reality, what are you also doing? You're paying your taxes to fund, essentially, the conquest of your own countries. This video will demonstrate this really well.
Here's the truth about Labour's migration chaos. We've uncovered this footage of illegal immigrants crossing the English Channel on a small dinghy. These are the kind of people entering the UK illegally on an almost daily basis. These illegal immigrants are brazenly boasting on social media that they've not only illegally entered Britain, but now they're getting accommodated at British taxpayers' expense in a swanky hotel. These people are laughing at us. This madness has to end. We can't have uncontrolled illegal immigration across the Channel anymore.
Yeah, look, it's pretty disgusting, isn't it? If you think about it, you go to work, you're doing an honest day's worth of work, and yet the government's using that to put up people in 5-star hotels, rolling out the red carpet, giving them free healthcare, free iPhones, free internet, whatever it is that they desire, they're being given, while you're struggling to afford to heat up your house and to afford your weekly groceries. These people are living in utter luxury. The politicians who bring them in are also living in utter luxury. And unless that changes, unless these incentives are removed, these people will continue pouring in. Of course, these people don't believe in secular liberal democracies. Why else? The second they're brought in and put at these hotels, and if there are schools nearby, they're going out there loitering, being pervs, and going a step further and committing some of the worst crimes you could think of. And then they just go back to their 5-star hotels and pretend like nothing's happened. That is the quality of illegal immigrants that are arriving into places like Europe today. These are serious crimes being committed by the ruling class on to the rest of the population. Genuinely, this should be punishable by jail time, in my opinion. Deport the rest of these people, and the people who are responsible, they need to be punished. They should be sent to jail, because their suicidal empathy is genuinely leading to the end of all these countries. Look, guys, that's all I had for today. If you enjoyed that video, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment your thoughts down below. As always, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the song that's coming up, and I'll see you next time.